welcome back to another episode of the Cosmic Confluence podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and here we are exploring the energetic intersections of wellness, leadership, and the deeper callings of our lives and the universe alike. Now, today's conversation is one I know will resonate with so many of you, especially those of us who wear multiple hats, hold space for others, and sometimes we forget to hold that same space, that empathy, that compassion for ourselves. And we are diving into the world of burnout recovery and holistic wellness, not just the fluffy kind, but the deep, soul level recalibration that lets us show up fully without losing ourselves in the process. And who better to guide us than Yvonne Lee-Hawkins? She's a holistic wellness and leadership coach with over 20 years of experience helping leaders and professionals recover from burnout, rebuild their energy, and reconnect with joy. Listeners, she's been in the trenches, balancing a high powered corporate role, managing teams, and being a mom of three. But when burnout hit, it became her wake up call. What followed was a wellness journey that blended energy work, leadership strategy, and deep healing. And today she's here to share what she has learned so we don't have to crash before we change. So let's quickly flow into this. So one, welcome to the show, and it's such an honor having you with us.
Thank you so much, Sana. It's a pleasure being here.
So one let's start at the turning point before we talk about the topic. So when burnout hit you hard, um, I mean, it's although people are aware about it, we are getting to talk about it more, we are acknowledging it, but I guess there are a lot of misconceptions around it. So, what did it look like and feel like in your life, and what was the first immediate shift you made toward healing?
Yeah, great question. I've actually had two major burnouts. And, it's interesting where if you don't learn the lesson the first time, you're kind of doomed to repeat it. So in my early 30s, I experienced burnout for the first time, and it showed up really in mental fog. I was the healthiest, fittest I had been. I had just been promoted a year earlier, but I was having a hard time making simple decisions. I've shared this story before, but I remember getting ready for my corporate job and opening up my dresser drawer, and I could not decide what socks to wear. And
Mhm.
as silly as that sounds, but I was standing there for a long time, and then I realized something's wrong. Like I just had decision fatigue, and it felt not just like I had brain fog, because that wasn't even a term back then, but like my brain was stuck in the mud. And kind of the myth that I think a lot of people fall into is that by changing jobs or just removing yourself from the situation will solve it. And that is one way I solved it in that very first time. I did seek some support from my doctor and other things, but I changed jobs, and for a while that worked until 10 years later it happened again. I found myself deep in burnout and different symptoms this time. This time they were physical symptoms. I gained weight. My blood pressure was dangerously high. My doctor wanted to put me on medication, and my vision was starting to regress. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is different, but similar circumstance because I was just overworking. So even though, so I feel like I've seen different levels of how burnout can affect you. And it wasn't as simple as, changing a job or anything like that. But what I realized a burning point for me was I no longer enjoyed the work I was doing. I was highly successful, but I had no joy. And I wasn't present for my husband or my family. And that's when I really knew like I had to change this.
Mm, that is really serious, and I can totally resonate with you because mm, 3 years back, I mean, just after I got laid off, with effect of the pandemic, um, I was kind of looking out for other opportunities, work opportunities, and I got into that. But it was, I was feeling like I am detached from myself. I'm not the one who used to be like 6 months back. My sleeping patterns were completely erratic. My blood pressure got high. That's where I got connected with that when you mentioned, not dangerously, but yes, something which I never expected, because I followed a very healthy lifestyle. I worked out, my blood pressure was good. I dislike fast food, so I was kind of thinking, where did I go wrong, why it is happening to me? And I had a kind of social anxiety. I always was frustrated with my family. I stopped interacting with people. So I mean, it's really dangerous when we actually start describing our experiences. So thank you for sharing that moment of awareness, Juan.
Yeah, I mean, and that's very common. I'm glad you bring that up because the one common thing I see in clients is they begin to isolate.
Mhm.
Because there's also, I think in today's fast-paced, world, there's a level of shame around it of like, like you can't work harder or you're supposed to work hard and everything should be, you should be always on and you should be helping everyone. And so when you get to a point where your body starts to say nope, it feels really hard.
Right, that's true. That's true. And the body whispers before it screams, and it usually becomes too late when we actually get to hear that. So now let's talk about your healing journey. One, about reclaiming energy, clarity, and joy. So, three things which burnout steals from us. So, what practices helped you begin to restore those parts of yourself? I mean, and how do you support clients today in doing the same?
Yeah, great question. The way I've learned over the last several years to frame this is, there are physical components, there are mental components, there are emotional components, and then last but not least, energetic components that kind of go throughout. And you have to recognize all of those areas. So one thing I help my clients is recognize the triggers in their physical health, their mental health, and so on and so forth, because they're like building blocks. And in order to regain the clarity and energy that you need and happiness, you need to, invest in each of those areas. Because I think a lot of us, especially, successful professionals, we focus on our career and very much on one thing. And, we tend to neglect our health sometimes. Or if we're really good at our health, we tend to neglect our mental health or other areas. And so, for me, it was a slow process of slowly building things back up step by step. And like you mentioned, with your case, like my sleep was very, very erratic. And if there's one thing I would encourage people to do is work on your sleep. It is the bedrock of everything. If you don't have good sleep, that's the time, when your body recharges, when your mind cleanses itself. There's a system in the brain called the lymphatic system, which actually cleans out your brain and, you know, um, helps you recover when you're sleeping. If you don't actually get enough sleep, it can't do that. So sleep was number one. And for me, it took a long time. I got really serious about a good sleep practice, about winding down in the evening, going to bed at the same time, removing screen time. But it took me a good 12 weeks for my sleep to recover, which is a long time if you think about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, so yeah, sleep was the first one. So that was in the physical realm. In the mental realm, everyone throws around gratitude practice these days, but I wanted to make sure that I saw more things to be grateful for in my life. So I restarted a gratitude practice where I would name 3 to 10 things every day that were bright spots. And sometimes they were simple things like a hug from my teenager or, a good conversation with a friend. But by doing that practice, we train our minds to look for good things. And so that was in the mental space. In the emotional side, this one was the hardest for me, but it was learning to actually feel my emotions. I grew up in the Western world and all business and often was taught, to kind of suppress your emotions, kind of move forward, move through things. And I really had to learn to name my emotion and allow myself to feel it. Because it's a lot like fishing is the way I would put it. If you put your hands in a stream and you recognize a fish and you think, "Oh, there's a fish there." You can see it. You can even hold on to it for a second, but then it will swim away. If you're trying to repress your emotion, it's like putting a net in the water. And sure, you don't have to pay attention to what's going on in there. You will catch a lot of fish, but it will back up and not in a good way. And at some point, the net will get so full that the fish will just come bursting through and not at good times. So, sometimes I see this in my clients where they'll have an outburst in a professional setting or a meeting, or they'll break down crying in a professional meeting. And it's because they haven't allowed themselves to feel their emotions in so long that the dam finally broke. And then last but not least, I'm a practitioner of pranic healing. So I love doing energy work and just paying attention to our energy. So a simple thing that I teach my clients, which anyone can do anywhere in the world, no matter what their finances are, is to stand outside and ground themselves. Just in your bare feet, stand on dirt or grass or whatever the natural ground is, and just feel your negative energy drain into the earth and kind of absorb, whatever's going around you, air, sunshine, trees. It's a good energetic practice to do. I try to do it daily.
That is so beautiful. That is simple yet so profound and beautiful. And I absolutely love that you advocate the importance of sleep. Because my immediate step was to step back from this hustle.
Mm.
I was frustrated. I very consciously decided to take a break, spend time with my family, my parents, especially because in all those years when I worked hard, like, a mad person, I kind of got distant from them. Uh,
Yeah.
so that actually gave me solace. I mean, even if to others it would sound like, why are you leaving your job? I mean, it is stable, you have money, you'll get savings and everything. But then I am the person who gets, because I am not taking that decision irrationally. I have some kind of rationality. I am doing the math, I'm calculating and everything, and then very mindfully I'm taking this decision. And another immediate step was to check my sleep, make sure that
Mhm.
I get 8 hours of sleep. Although right now it's not in the same pattern, but I still get my minimum 8 hours of sleep. Minimum.
Yeah, one thing that I was shocked to learn, because I have a biology degree. My background before business was the sciences. And, we're all taught, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, but more and more research is coming out that especially women need closer to 9 or 10 hours of sleep because of the complexity of our hormone cycles compared to men's hormone cycles. So it's interesting. So I always and the other thing that, I learned, which was super helpful, is it doesn't necessarily have to be 8 or 9 hours in one setting. I believe in a good power nap. You can get 6 hours and then, take a couple hour or a 1-hour nap in the day, and it'll be just as good.
Absolutely. Trust me, every day I tell my mom to take a power nap before she gets into her daily activities. Just take that 1 hour or 2 hours of power nap. No disturbance. It's just you spending time with yourself. Take that power nap and then you'll see the benefits there. So that is so uh, good that you mentioned that, especially for all the women out there. Wow. Okay. So, now, once some people would say that this healing, or you know, getting into the healing journey after burnout, it's nice in theory, or maybe taking a break as I took it, it's nice in theory, but I have bills to pay. I have no time to meditate or energy heal my way out of this. I have so many practical problems out there that, I don't think I can find any time for myself. So what would you say to that?
Well, I recognize that, everyone is in different points in their life, and that's not to say, everyone can just run away and, follow their passion and be highly successful in it. But I would say everyone can do simple things, and it's like I said, simple gratitudes about what is good in your life. Um, Part of it too is, if you have a job that you don't love, you're not passionate about, that's okay as long as it's temporary, right? I think, a lot of people talk about, follow your passions and these things, but the way I consider it, the way I think about it is very energetically, is I truly believe we were each given unique gifts at birth. And the things that you naturally gravitate towards, people will call it talent, are things that you enjoy and things that give you energy, right? It's like when you spend time, whatever it is for you, if it's art or if it's music or dancing, if that gives you energy, then that, is a gift given to you. And then we have things that drain our energy. I think most of us can agree, like sitting in a meeting or, different things, different interactions that will drain you. I think no matter what kind of job you have, even if it's, I don't know, picking apples or working in a warehouse, paying attention to the things that energize you, and moving towards those step by step. So, for example, if you're, years ago, I worked in a warehouse. So if you're a warehouse worker and you don't love moving boxes, that's okay. I don't think anybody loves moving boxes, at least most people don't. But maybe you get a lot of energy out of interacting with people and teaching. Then even in that warehouse job, you can move towards looking for opportunities to become a trainer, to interact with people, to teach them things. So I think it's just paying attention to what naturally you love and gives you energy, no matter what job you're in. That is a move in the right direction.
There is such a beautiful balance of whether it's leadership or business or profession, and then holistic healing. I think it's honoring both the spreadsheets and the soul. So that is so beautiful.
Right.
That's
I love that you bring that up, right? Because for me, the one person would hate to have to work in spreadsheets all day, but we have accountants in the world who actually love it, right? And so those are the right people who should be working in there. And if that's not your thing, that's okay. Just recognize it and find something where you can make money and you can increase your energy.
Mm, definitely, definitely. Okay, and also, I think individualistically we have addressed burnout, but yeah, it can impact our self-worth, our confidence, even our relationships. Like what happened
100%.
to me. Yeah. So what emotional or identity level shifts do you see people going through on their healing journey?
Yeah, I think a really important piece on the healing journey is also to recognize you are not alone. I think the importance of community, especially now, is more important than ever. And unfortunately, in a lot of places in the world where people are online, spending a lot of time online and not in physical presence with each other, there seems to be a contraction of community. But if you're not feeling well, there are people in your life who care about you, and being present with them, being vulnerable, asking for help is an amazing thing because not only will people who care about you help you, but you build stronger relationships. Often people think that asking for help is a strain on a relationship, but research has shown the opposite, that people who were asked to help someone, had more trust, had more connection, and had more belief in that person who asked them to help them. So it's not just doing it for yourself, but it actually builds bridges in the community. It builds bridges in your relationship. So suffering alone is not the answer, but leaning on your friends, family members, even coworkers who care about you. And through that, it also helps you with your confidence because these people see the best of you. When you're burnt out, it's like wearing dirty glasses. You actually can't see yourself clearly.
That is so, so true. I couldn't agree more with you. Wow. Wow. And what would you say to someone who says that, skeptics, burnout is just poor time management or lack of discipline or lack of planning? I mean, how do we shift that narrative?
Yeah, I mean, I came from the corporate world where it was always like push through, work through it, get over it. And I think, there is a difference between kind of how you push yourself and learning to kind of throttle. I work with a lot of high achievers, driven people, a lot of type A's who think they're going to be able to action their way out of burnout. And sometimes I describe it like driving a manual car, like a stick shift. It's like you have to go to first gear before you can go to second gear and then to third gear, and to be up and running, say in fifth gear, you're speeding is wonderful, but if you're stuck in any one gear, your car's gonna break down, right? It's not you can't drive that way, and so you have to learn to back off and kind of retreat into, different gears at different times in your life. Now that's on a personal level. So it's things like boundaries, which I know is a big buzzword right now, but it's just respecting your time and knowing your limits. Not saying yes to everything that somebody gives you. Or one thing I teach my clients, if they have, if they're in a corporate job and their boss keeps piling things on, is saying things like, I would love to do that. My plate is full right now. Thank you for thinking of me. I can take that on when XYZ is done. Or would you like me to, take something off and do this instead? So it's having an honest conversation with your manager or your leader to say, I would love to do that. Which one of these other things do you want to deprioritize? Right? I think that's on an individual level. I think on a leadership level, there needs to be a lot more responsibility on the workload we put on our people. Because when people don't push back and say no, if we are not intentional about checking in on our people and their workload, we will burn them out, which is the worst business decision to make because when people burn out, they will either get physically ill or mentally ill or will just quit the job.
Yeah.
And then we have to hire new people, right? So it hurts the business. So if you're burning out your people as a leader, I urge you to take it more seriously because every time you have to rehire somebody to do a job because you burned someone out, you're actually hurting your business.
I think if that doesn't convince, then, I mean, I don't know what else will convince. That was really, really such a great message, such a powerful message, I think, on both the ends, especially in the professional settings. So before we wrap up, if someone listening to us is deep in burnout right now, what's one gentle, accessible step they can take today to start coming back to themselves?
I think the biggest thing I would encourage someone in burnout is to give themselves some compassion to realize you can't, it's like digging a hole, right? You need to stop digging. It's okay to pause, just like the seasons in nature. It's not always springtime, it's not always harvest time, there are seasons, and winter is a time of rest in nature. In our life, we also need to have seasons of rest. So just encouraging someone to not continue to try to work it out alone, but actually take a step back and see where they can give themselves some rest.
That is so grounding, so grounding. And if listeners would like to get in touch with you on how they can do that.
Absolutely. There's two great places to get in touch with me. One is my website, YvonneLeeHawkins.com. The other one is on Instagram, which is Instagram Yvonne_Lee-Hawkins.
Great. We'll have all the links in the show notes. And Yvonne, thank you so much for giving us that gentle reminder that healing is both a choice and a practice. And you really, really have shown us that we don't have to sacrifice our well-being for success. I mean, we can have
Absolutely.
both if we are willing to reconnect with what truly holistically nourishes us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sana. It's been a pleasure.
And to all of our listeners, if you are moving through burnout, please know this: you are not broken. You are just being called to recalibrate. You can recover your energy. You can feel joy, that fulfillment, that sense of satisfaction again. And you are worthy of a life that doesn't cost you your spirit. And to connect with Yvonne, just refer to the show notes along with this episode. And if this conversation has connected with you, share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Until next time, stay radiant, stay rooted, and keep trusting your cosmic path. Thank you.